Good evening, everyone. I'd like to welcome everybody to tonight's June 6th, 2023 City Council meeting. I'd like to ask that you please silence any and all electronic devices. At this time, we'll call on Council Member Kathy Hikes for tonight's invocation.
Let's bow our heads. We have much to be grateful for tonight, in spite of the many intractable problems facing our world. But we have a beautiful spring, reasonably good health, neighbors helping and celebrating their neighbors, hardworking employees, and a well-operated city. We meet to serve our community, to use our resources wisely and well, to represent all members of our city fairly, to make decisions that promote the common good. We recognize our responsibility to the past and to the future, and to balance the rights and needs of both individuals and the whole community. As trusted servants, we seek blessings on our deliberations and on our efforts here tonight. May we act wisely and well. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. Next item on the agenda is our Code of Ethics, disclosing any conflicts of interest. At this time, we'll call on City Clerk Beverly Smith.
Members of Council, it is my responsibility to remind you of your duty to avoid conflicts of interest. I ask if there are any potential conflicts concerning tonight's agenda items.
None. Thank you. Next item is the approval of minutes from the May 1st, 2023 work session. At this time, we'll entertain a motion on the approval of those minutes.
So moved.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by aye. Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. Our next item is additions to the consent agenda. Item B, a resolution setting a date of public hearing, annexation 0 Ross Street. Item C, resolution setting a date of public hearing, annexation 2635 West Front Street. Item D, resolution in opposition of House Bill 409, regulation of accessory dwelling units. Item E, resolution in opposition of Senate Bill 675, elimination of extraterritorial jurisdiction and prohibition of minimum lot sizes. At this time, we'll entertain a motion on the additions to the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Those are approved. At this time, we will move into the adoption of the agenda.
Mr. Mayor,
Yep.
I'd like to make a recommendation that under new business item number 2 that we move to the top of the agenda. It's my understanding that Mr. Hoxie has another meeting he needs to attend, and I've spoken with Mr. Laws in reference to that agenda item.
Is everybody good if we move new business to the top of the agenda list?
Good.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yep. So at this time, we'll entertain a motion to adopt the agenda with that adjustment.
So moved.
Second. We have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by aye. Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. The agenda is adopted. Consent agenda. These items are typically non-controversial. If anyone has any questions about the following items, please let us know. Item A, to approve the reclassification of an administrative specialist position, level 20, to an operations manager, level 31, in the Public Works Department, effective July 1st, 2023. Item B, to adopt a resolution setting a date of public hearing for June 20th, 2023 to consider an annexation of a parcel at 0 Ross Street, parcel ID 140651. Item C, to adopt a resolution setting a date of public hearing for June 20th, 2023 to consider the annexation of a parcel located at 2635 West Front Street, parcel ID 115754. Item D, to adopt a resolution to oppose House Bill 409, regulation of accessory dwelling units, ADU. Item E, to adopt a resolution to oppose Senate Bill 675, including the elimination of extraterritorial jurisdiction and prohibition of minimum lot sizes. At this time, we'll entertain a motion on the consent agenda.
Move the approval of the consent agenda.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by aye. Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. It is approved. Our next item will be new business. Under new business, City Council will consider a request for the use of Lake Camac for the swimming portion of the 18th Annual Buckner Mission Man Triathlon hosted by Front Street Methodist Church on July 22nd, 2023 from 7 a.m. to 12 p.m. contingent upon meeting all requirements of the special event permit application process. At this time, we'll recognize Recreation and Parks Director Tony Laws and the Triathlon Coordinator David Hoaxie. Welcome. Good evening.
Hello. Go ahead and say the knowledge. Okay, I don't, we've done this for 18 years.
Long time.
And we really have appreciated the support that we've gotten from the City Council, from the Recreation and Parks Department, from the Emergency Services Department, which organizes the meetings for all of the emergency service groups that show up out there, lifeguards, rescue squads, Sheriff's Department, and all that. So it's been real helpful to have all that support. So we're looking forward to it again this year. We do have our registrations are running a little ahead of last year. Last year we ended up with about 150 participants, which was down from, I think our high was 220 something in 2019. And we got back up to 150 last year. So we're hoping to have close to 200 this year.
Good.
David, if I remember the first one we were at, we had darker hair. What do you think?
And more.
That's twice in 2 days I've heard Harold mention having darker hair.
But you know, the growth of this thing since 2000, the first one has been unbelievable. And you just mentioned to people here where people come from for this. This is not just
Well,
local.
they're all over North Carolina, Virginia, and South Carolina. We do have them we've had them from Colorado and different places that have family members here, and they just come in. And they really enjoy this. It's a beautiful lake, a beautiful run, and the ride through the county is nice too. So it really shows off our facilities.
Good.
Tony, any other comments?
Just that we appreciate Front Street Methodist Church doing this event. They have an army of volunteers out there. I can assure you that. And so everything goes great. It's been almost 20 years, and we haven't had any issues. We've actually saved at least one life in the swimming part from a gentleman that had a heart attack while he was swimming.
City lifeguards were there.
That's right. Our lifeguards got him out of the water.
And then the rescue squad too.
Took him to the hospital, so he survived, and that was great. So
Good.
anyway, it's a wonderful event. Raises some much needed money for the church, and we have a lot of local people that also, besides the out of state people that Mr. Hoxie mentioned, a lot of local people participate in this event too.
Good.
Okay. Thank you. Any other questions from council on this event? If not, at this time, we'll entertain a motion for the request.
Motion to approve.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. We appreciate you guys doing that.
We have a staff member who's participating, I understand.
Who's that?
Brian?
Oh,
Brian. Okay.
Harold, I think you ought to match his effort.
Oh, yes. Brian, you know there's no sharks out there, and you know. So
Well, as soon as he said somebody actually had a heart attack, I was ready to say, well, wait a minute, I want my refund.
We'll get a lifeguard with you. It'll be just fine. All right. Next item is our public hearing this evening. A public hearing has been scheduled to consider adopting the proposed fiscal year 2023-2024 annual budget ordinance and fiscal year 2023-2024 community development budget ordinance. I do want to preface this a little bit by just a couple of comments. One, as we enter into this discussion this evening and subsequent action, I do want to thank for staff and really council for some very thoughtful, some very challenging, some very deliberative dialogue in this year's budget. I think it was probably the most well-read budget, the well-studied budget, well-conversed. And this has been perhaps, I said it last night, but it's been perhaps the most difficult year to create a streamlined budget that is both conservative in nature, but also positions us ahead of the many critical needs that we know we have looming before us. We're dealing with tax revaluation. We're dealing with record inflation, both historical and a continuum of such. We've got tighter regulations. We're seeing growth in our population. We have an unknown economy and some other variables yet to be discovered. But What we do know is that reval is a moving target, and we know where we think we're starting from and where we think we need to be to create a streamlined budget. One of the things that I do want to mention before Craig goes into this, and we've talked about it a lot, is if you just take the inflationary aspects alone of what we're dealing with historically to normalize our budget just for status quo operations, no additions to normal services, it is the equivalent of about 4 cents from our revenue neutral rate. And I'm sure Craig's going to go through some of that tonight. When you take that inflationary aspect, it has no aspirational items in it. It's just fact that we have to live with and we have to move forward. So we've been very fortunate. This council has been able to really hold our tax rate steady for 16 years. I said last night, no credit will ever be given for that, but none's deserved. We've done our jobs. We've really worked hard at cutting corners, being frugal, relying on staff, relying on good fortune and good decision making, and that's been tough. I don't know that we'll ever see that again. 16 years is a long time. However, I do believe we're at a point where revenues do have to increase beyond organic growth if we're going to really sustain the level of service that our city has to have in order to thrive and grow. All the while, we must keep the taxpayer at the forefront of the discussion, as their individual situations are just as complicated as ours. So those things alone are why this budget has been extremely difficult, and I am very proud of everybody's efforts to bring forth what we're going to be looking at tonight. And Craig, I'll turn it over to you.
Peggy we thought it was loaded, but Peggy is getting the presentation, and so it will take just a second. Our apologies.
Well, I could hold it up and y'all can talk about it.
We'll just give you a hard copy, Craig.
That's all right.
We get one of the corners from last.
Yeah.
She's so quick.
Peggy, are you scared to show it? Is that what it is?
That's exactly.
You're fine.
Good evening, Mayor and Council, and let me first thank you for allowing me to present my first budget here for the City of Burlington. And I must say, in my 30 years of being a city or county manager, this has probably been the most unique budget that I've ever tried to work with staff and council on. With record high inflation, high property reval, and also we've had really high employee costs. And trying to fit that all into one budget and really provide the services that you and our citizens expect, it's been a challenge. But I do want to thank our budget team, Nolan Kirkman, Rachel Kelly, Bob Patterson, Julianne, and Peggy, along with all our department heads, for really trying to do what was best, not only for our employees, but also for the citizens as we try to provide those services. So, that being said, we'll go ahead with the presentation. We kind of had a theme when we were looking at this, and one of the things that we looked at is we wanted to make sure that we were taking care of our existing assets. And again, revenues really came up this year. Again, as I mentioned earlier, property tax reval, we were looking at modest sales tax growth, not as much growth as we've seen in the past couple of years. We have seen that slow down some, but we've also seen a development revenue reduction. As the board is aware, we gave some incentives away with respect to fees. But also we wanted to look at our water and sewer, make sure that we were consistent with what we needed in water and sewer, and we're looking at a 5% increase in our water and sewer. But again, on our spending, as the mayor mentioned, inflationary costs, fuel, utilities, etc. We'll show you kind of how we had that broken down. It's about $2.4 million. Investing in our employees. We have made great investments in our employees, especially public safety. And that's kind of what we're known for. If we've got to provide services, public safety and our police and fire, we are committed to doing that. Again, public safety salary, increases in CCOM communication. We're replacing our radios and also our CCOM controllers. They're at end of life. So that was a huge cost for us this year. And we've also tried to address some of our deferred maintenance. So we really took a very broad sweep of what we tried to do within this budget. Again, just a quick update on our economic look. If you can see, in June 2020, unemployment was 9.7%. Right now, we're looking around 3.6%. And basically what that means is employees have opportunities to pick and choose where they want to work. So one of the things that we really tried to do in this year's budget is to make sure that we were competitive in our salaries, because we want people to choose to work for the city of Burlington. Again, as we talked about, our CPI over the past 4 years is up about 21.1%. And again, we have no control over this. It just costs that have increased. But again, over the 4-year period, it's about a 21% inflationary increase. Here's where we're at, just a quick overview. We're looking at a general fund revenue of $78.8 million. Again, reval year. But as part of reval, we always have about a 2% increase in our property valuation just for nominal growth. Sales tax is up 9.6% over prior year's budget. And again, if we look at our top 3 revenues, is property tax, sales tax, and permits and fees. And please stop me anytime if you have any questions or want additional information. Again, this is kind of a scale of municipalities our size of where we would be. Right now, the budget is recommended at 49.73 cents per hundred. And again, our revenue neutral rate that we've calculated is 41 cents. Our current rate is 59.73. And again, that calculates as 1 penny equaling about $700,000. But if you can see from the list, if we did go 49.73, we would be on the lower end of municipalities our size. Again, our general fund expenditures, we talked about it before, investing in our employees. And again, our employees are our most important asset. We've had inflation and things we can't control. But again, our top 3 departments are police, fire, and public works. And those 3 alone, where we really have a heavy emphasis on employees, make up 60% of our budget. Again, this is how it's broken down between police, public works, and fire, and then all others. And again, this is general fund expenditures by department. Again, police at 24.2, fire at 11.9, public works at 11.3, and then on down the road for the rest of our departments, as you can see. Again, we have some changes in our general fund, and again, we've had some increases. We've talked about this, and really, a really thank you to the City Council is the changes that we made back in the fall to our police department with respect to making those changes and increases for that. But we also added on some SROs. So with that revenue that was helped offset, we still had an increase of $3.1 million. Again, fire was part of our increase as well this year. We're looking at $6,500 per employee. plus their DI increases. So that means about almost $1.1 million in new revenue or new expenditures. One of the things that, if you remember, we did last year when we started looking at downtown and the improvements downtown, especially on the cleanliness, we added a couple of positions in recreation, and we also added a part-time position as well. That was $170,000. And again, for the rest of our employees who are not police or fire, we're looking at a 4% COLA, but also up to a 1% merit. And that total would be a little over $1 million. And again, as we mentioned, inflationary increases, and we'll show the details on the next slide, is almost $2.4 million. And then also we've had debt service increase of almost $1 million.
Craig, the police pay changes in the net of county SRO revenue, I'm going from memory, but that was about $490,000?
Yes. And that's subtracted from 3.1.
That's right.
So total expense side would be about 3.6.
Again, these are what we looked at in trying to look at inflationary operating costs that really we had no control over. Contracted services, utilities, professional services, maintenance and repair, auto fuel, auto expense, uniforms, and again, we're our CCOM lease payment. When we look at all of that, that is $2.3 billion right there. And again, if we're looking at $700,000 per penny, that is, if I do my math right, 3.5 cents, just in inflationary. Again, talking about water, and water is our enterprise fund. We're looking at $33.6 million. Revenue is, as you can see there, our sales to Greensboro, all of the revenue, and our water and sewer revenue. And again, this is how we do the expense on the water resources side, is $33.6 million. And that's broken down between debt, water, lakes and marinas, and shared resources. Again, this is an outline of how we're spending that per facility, building and maintenance, the Ed Thomas plant, the East waste treatment plant, how we've got that broken down per service. And again, as we mentioned, we do plan to recommend a 5% increase on our water and sewer rates. Basically, this would mean a monthly increase of about $2.45 on a 5,000 gallon per month, and that's 4 people. And again, with the 2,500 is $1.22. Again, an overall snapshot of our revenues and expenditures in our general fund. As you can see, we're at $78.8 million with respect to general fund. And then our water resources is at 33.6 revenues and expenditures. And that is all I have at this point. One thing I do want to thank City Council for is our discussion that we had last night. And I really appreciate Council's input and the discussion we had last night, especially dealing with how we were budgeting revenues. One of the things, I will be very honest with you, as staff, I'm very conservative with respect to how we budget revenues. And we want to make sure that you know, in my 30 years of budgeting, you always overestimate revenues to a certain extent, and you underestimate expenditures. One of the things that I heard fairly clearly from City Council last night was we needed to relook at our revenue projections. So we looked at our sales tax especially. We were going up about 11%. Compared to other municipalities, that may have been a little low and a little conservative, but also looking at our fund balance, and we do have a very healthy fund balance. So part of the discussion that I did here last night was that you did want to look at an option to possibly use fund balance and also use some of additional sales tax revenue. And there is a recommendation to lower the tax rate from the current 49,873 to 48,306. And if we did do that, we would recommending adjusting up our sales tax revenue, increasing that by $600,000, and then using $359,000 in additional fund balance. And
Appropriate fund balance would go from 1.7 to 2 something.
yes, sir.
And we're still using that as a bridge.
It's a bridge.
So in the event revenues really come in greater than our newer projections, that bridge may not be needed.
Right. Right. Budgeting is always a guess sometimes. And again, we're not sure what, appeals may or may not happen with reval. We don't know what the economy may or may not do. But again, I've always used, and I think the city has as well, used fund balances, really just kind of filling in the gaps before we can get to the final budget.
So the new rate is, tell me one more time.
48,306.
48,306.
Yes, sir.
Well, I think given the dialogue from last night, that's certainly moving in the direction of trying to be very conservative and really taking a hard look at things, and I appreciate you doing that. I feel a lot more comfortable about that than where we were, because it is a guessing game. And listen, it's been tough. I can't imagine that. I know why Peggy didn't have that slide. She probably don't even know what day it is. So this has been a moving target.
It has, especially the revenue neutral rate has moved. We did get a really good handle on that until about a month ago, and right before our initial presentation. So, but we do feel good about the 41 cents being the revenue neutral number.
Yeah. Council comments or?
Well, I think they did a lot of work. I'm gonna give all the department heads and admin staff, and obviously finance. It's what makes this so difficult is that, I was reading today of where we are in 2023, and the economic growth rate as we speak in 2023 is 1.3% first quarter, which means the economy is flat. Another number which I thought was pretty unusual, the inflation rate since 2021 has been 21%. Which impacts everybody, let's be honest. I'm going to take a lot of blame for this because I was part of this as a manager and then as an elected official. While it's good for a lot of people, we've gone 17 years without a tax increase in this city, this organization. There's been water and sewer increases because that's an enterprise fund. It has to make a profit. It's pretty amazing we pull that off, but honestly, it's not something you expect to do going forward for that period of time with inflation the way it is. If you're going to try to provide services, if you want to provide a community where you're going to grow your tax base, which we need to do, attract citizens and attract industry, it takes investment. So I think that's something that we all got to remember going forward. It'll be interesting to see where sales tax ends up, because sales tax it saved us so many years back when we really were in an economy-based situation. But I think the number we have here, we certainly can work with and still provide quality services, realizing that to keep our staffing, especially in police and fire, this has been unprecedented increases in salary expenses in those two departments. But it's public safety. People expect public safety. We were certainly
deserve it.
Deserve it. we were struggling with all police officers down as we were. Firemen, we take for granted in terms of every call they come on, whether it's fire or whether it's an injury or a sickness, they're there. And it was something that we needed to do to remain competitive, to keep a veteran, experienced staff on hand. Other employees also got increases, but so much of the increases was based on inflation. Just trying to stay, move up some, but stay level, and they do a wonderful job. So, this is, I wish I could say this is a fairly simple process, but it's far from it, and I believe this year maybe it's about as complicated.
Without doubt.
In terms of all the things happening around it and trying to project something out. And it's, I can't tell you how much I appreciate the effort that the staff put into this to give us information that we could review and learn from.
Yeah, I think it's really important too to understand, Harold talked about the last 16 or 17 years. We had to reinvent ourselves as a city. We did, for a lot of different reasons. And we went through a pretty significant recessive period.
Yep.
Those were tough budgets. We've climbed through COVID and navigated that pretty well. But think about where we're positioned now. Think about the economic development that we've talked about in the last 6 months, even projects that we've been working on. Think about Toyota just announced basically doubling the size of their plant to fund batteries for their new facility in Kentucky. All those batteries will come out of our close proximity. Think about what that's going to do to our area. So we're on the edge of a potential boom, but we've got to be able to sustain that boom. It takes personnel, it takes services, it takes competent personnel to do that. And then we've got to be sure that we're keeping a good quality of life so people will live here because they want to, not because they have to, not because of geography, but because of what we offer. And I think that in and of itself is what's going to position us to move forward. And our growth rate, based on the last census data that we just looked at here not too long ago, was staggering. And those things are going to continue to put pressures on us. But Harold mentioned it: payroll pressures, low unemployment, and the demand for qualified personnel are going to be ongoing. That's not going to change. So a lot of effort has gone into this budget, and I really do appreciate the sincerity that everybody put forth to try to bring this thing to the forefront that works for everybody.
Jim mentioned the word reinvent ourselves. A portion, I'm going to give credit to the planning department. We had to reinvent the way we planned and the way we went forth with development. We had to become a situation where you got quality development, but you got it in an expedient manner that gave developers locally or out of town a sense of wanting to come here and work. And we are situated. I mean, we can't. This is a wonderful area. We always kid about this, but for some of us who's been here a long time, water is an inescapable, important resource that we have. We have an opportunity for both residential, commercial, and industrial growth. Now, how we get it done is going to be a challenge at times. You have to invest to get that growth. But I think attempting to keep quality staff, having a vision going forward, gives you an opportunity to compete. And that's all you can ask for, is to be able to compete for some of this growth.
Yeah. Like I said, the Tri-Business Journal recently came out with the fastest growing city within the Triad.
Just last week or week before?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So think about that.
Yeah. That's quite, double think about that from where we were.
Yeah. Last rebound.
Yeah, that's right.
Any other questions or comments before we open the public hearing? Okay. This is a public hearing concerning our budget. So at this time, we'll open our public hearing. Is there anyone on this side of the room that would like to speak about the budget item before us? Is there anyone on this side of the room that would like to speak about the budget item that we're discussing? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by aye. Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. Our public hearing is closed. At this time, we'll entertain more discussion, or we'll entertain a motion on the proposed fiscal year 2023-2024 annual budget ordinance and fiscal year 2023-2024 community development budget ordinance.
The only comment I wanted to make was I really like the idea of taking care of existing assets that you used as the way to figure out what the budget needed to be. And people are our assets as well as our physical plant. And we can't lose sight of that and how important that is for this to be a well-run city. So I appreciate that idea going forward. We do need to plan for future growth. As they say, that there are 1,000 people a year moving into our city, we're going to have to be prepared for that. So that's not something that you just sit back and relax about. You have to keep making sure you're thinking ahead. I think everybody else has said all of the things that the budget had to be because of the kinds of things that went into it. I don't need to add to that.
Anyone else? Okay, at this time?
Ready for a motion?
Yes, sir.
Mayor, I make a motion to adopt the fiscal year 23-24 budget ordinance and a motion to adopt the grant project ordinance 2022-2023 community development program.
And that would be at the rate of .4836. Is that correct?
That is correct.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by aye. Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. Our budget is approved. We appreciate everyone's efforts for that. Thank you, Craig, for those last-minute adjustments and payment. Thank you. Appreciate that. Next item is public comments. We have no public comments this evening. Is that right? So moving to council comments. Let's see, we have a couple here. One is today was Link Transit's 7-year anniversary. Isn't that right? It was from 12 to 3. We had activities out at the hub area, the depot area. So a couple of things, 7 years. So since 2016, Link Transit's carried 635,000 passenger trips. Mike, that's a bunch. Did you ever think we'd be saying that?
No, especially with COVID, I think about that.
Well, how many years did we talk about it before we got there? We could rehearse those slides. Yeah.
4.
4, 8. Yeah, 8. We take trips between Burlington, Gibsonville, Alamance County offices, Alamance Community College. We've got the paratransit program, which is working well. Great improvements. We've added weekday, evening, Saturday service. We've got electric buses just around the corner that are going to be important to us. We're adding real-time tracking technology. We're going to be connecting through Elon and passenger shelters and sidewalks and areas there. So this is a vibrant piece of what we do. Talking about the growth and the expansion that we're looking at and being the largest growing community in the Triad, this is going to become a more critical piece. And you know, what Link Transit's been able to do over the last 7 years has been very methodical, kind of quietly, and utilizing the majority, by far majority of our funds are 5307 federal monies. So we've done it utilizing federal government monies really, really well and not really jeopardizing our own budget. So thanks to everybody for your efforts on that. Couple of congratulations. We'll congratulate our chief, Brian Long. Where is he at? Is he hiding? I guess this is your last meeting. We're going to miss you, buddy. We're very appreciative of your service, and we wish you the very best. You're still hiding back there. Thank you. And congratulations to our incoming chief, Alan Baylock. We're very proud that incoming Chief Baylock will take over a very healthy department. Where is he? There he is.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah. And we look forward to his plans to really continue to create a safe community for our citizens to live, work, and play. You've been an integral part of sort of reinvented our PD, and we wish you the best. No one could know it any better than you. So we're very thankful for you. And I'm sure everybody's aware that Fire Chief Jay Medbin has resigned his position with the City of Burlington effective June 30th. Is that right? To become the next fire chief in Chapel Hill. So we thank him for his many years of service and multiple roles in our city. And Jay, we wish you the very best on the next leg of your career. We love you and we really appreciate you, buddy, and thank you for everything you've done for the city. And then real quick, we've been working hard for a year and a half. I talked about it last night briefly in the work session, but I do want to mention it in the council meeting. On trying to really get something done with Western Electric and the plant cleanup there of the contamination. We've worked hard with the Department of Defense, and Peter's been an integral piece of that, as all city staff has. We've pushed them and pushed them. We were told we were going to have a plan in March from them, a mitigation or remediation plan, whatever it is. They kept saying, how many times did they say 2 weeks, Peter?
3.
Okay, well, we finally called them out on it, and we received it. Problem is we can't read it yet. It's kind of complicated. So, but we do have a plan in some capacity, and staff will be really digging through that. The state of North Carolina will have a key piece in that. Isn't that right, Peter?
Yes, DEQ manages the cleanup process.
Okay. So more to come on that, but that is still moving forward. And I wanted, we've not talked about it a lot in a couple of months because we've really been waiting on this, but now we have it in hand. Any other comments about that? I mean, that's just kind of it till we vet through it. And then,
Mayor, can I mention one thing?
Yep, go ahead.
Today happened. I have new neighbors across from me. Our former neighbors have lived there for 40 years and passed away, and the gentleman bought the house, a young family from Durham. He came in yesterday, and he was taking carpet out, and he asked how that could be picked up, and I told him to call Public Works. He comes from Durham again. He said, well, it would take probably 2 weeks in Durham to have this picked up. Well, this morning at 7 o'clock or 7:30, the Public Works staff was there and picked all that up. And he called me today, and he was amazed by that. So I'm not trying to put Durham down, but we've got quite a Public Works staff with wonderful leadership. And we certainly, I think, appreciate all their efforts.
well, everybody on staff really tries to humanize the decision-making process. There's a human being attached to the end of every phone call we receive with a need. So that's a great story. One other thing, Tony, when are we going to get update on Recreation and Parks Master Plan?
July, the second meeting, the only meeting in July,
Okay.
the work session.
Okay, the work session. All right, thank you. I just wanted an update on that. That's all I have. Anybody else have anything on council comment? If not, at this time, we will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor signify by aye.
I'd like to comment on David Huckle. He's doing an excellent job in the city.
We are adjourned.